Good evening to all of you viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us. Our Majesties right away. As various political parties prepare for the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon, the idea of a coalition to form a stronger bloc against the party in power has been brought up severally. But how possible is a coalition among the numerous opposition parties in Cameroon? We will attempt an answer with a political actor in this edition of the news. And after calling on the world to pray for an end to the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, Pope Francis, the Holy Father, has enjoined everyone across the globe to pray for those suffering in Sudan and other war-torn countries in Africa. Viewers, those are our major stories. Details when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. We begin this edition of the news with this human interest story from the Mongo division of the Littoral region. A woman in her 60s perishes in a fire incident which took place or happened in Nous in the Mongo division that was later yesterday. Contraband fuel she reportedly stocked in her house is said to be at the origin of the tragic incident. Let's now get to know what really happened in Nous with Innocent Aze.
Of the victim, Mama Kwichu Justine, over 60 years of age, have been deposited in the morgue pending burial.
La fête du feu, c'est le 23, c'est comme appelle Mehdi.
On m'a dit ma maman est décédée.
It was at about 5 p.m. Monday in the Nous Chantier neighborhoods in Nous subdivision that the tragic fire outbreak occurred, reducing the plank house and its contents to nothing useful. Locals recount they heard a loud explosion in the house of the deceased woman who had stocked liters of contraband fuel she sold. The explosion was massive.
Partout! Donc s'il n'y avait pas les gens, ça prenait tout le quartier.
We only managed to put out the flames. We could not save her. She was completely burned. While at the morgue, the undertaker rejected her remains. It was only the intervention of a gendarme official and the payment of 50,000 francs CFA that the undertaker changed his mind. Inhabitants believe the incident was provoked by the fuel in her house. Some persons say no one would have been selling and stocking the illicit fuel at home, provided the nation was not experiencing a chronic economic hardship and unemployment.
Sad indeed. And now back to Douala to talk urban disorder. A campaign of verification of buildings in the city of Douala is expected to begin soonest. The initiative of the Douala City Council is meant to trace owners of buildings who do not respect building norms and also do not have building permits. According to a communique made public by the Douala City Mayor, the campaign will go a long way to avoid structures built on risk zones and collapsing and also killing people. Immaculate Fogwe read through the communique and compiled this report for the news.
There seems to be no end to reactions and controversies in connection to demolition exercises carried out in several parts of the city of Douala, which has turned many homes to rumbles and turned landlords to become tenants and in some cases become homeless. Justifying some of the demolition exercises, the city mayor, Dr. Roger Mbassadine, says residents of demolished buildings violated the rules. In a recent communique, Dr. Roger Mbassadine gives a 30-day ultimatum to owners of construction sites within the urban perimeter to obtain the necessary documents. He warns them that failing to do so exposes them to various sanctions, which could go as far as demolishing their buildings in accordance with Law No. 2019/2024 of Decentralization and Local Collectivities. He further warns all those who decide to use unscrupulous means to obtain building permits of the sanctions that await them. It should be recalled that on August 3, 2023, the city mayor suspended some council workers for being involved in corrupt practices. According to official figures, out of nearly 1 million construction sites, only 10% of the buildings have building permits. He went ahead to raise concerns about those who decide to build houses in risk zones, a situation which he says has resulted to several casualties. The demolition exercise announced for February 20th could not hold for reasons yet to be made public.
Now we take you to the West region. The new divisional officer, a female of Baku in the Open Camp division of the West region, has been called upon to rehabilitate roads like the Bafang-Konjong stretch, which has been in deplorable state for years now, and equally the problem of insecurity and the consumption of hard drugs by most youths in her area of jurisdiction. Let's now come back to the installation ceremony in this report by Lucille Ngu is here.
Moving from Bafang to Konjok in the Open Camp division of the West region is a tedious task for road users plying the stretch. Worst is during the raining season, as farmers find it difficult to transport their goods from farm to market. Aside the poor state of roads is insecurity and urban disorder. These, amongst other challenges, are awaiting the new divisional officer of Baku, Chunam Fusa Jocelyn Ghana.
Nous attendions que Madame le sous-préfet, qui est...
There is a need to rehabilitate roads leading to farms so that farmers can transport their goods.
Les routes pour que tout soit plus mieux.
The senior divisional officer urged the new divisional officer of Baku to fight against insecurity, the consumption of hard drugs by working in synergy with local vigilante groups and traditional authorities. To fight against the sale and consumption of hard drugs and other narcotic drugs. The population of Baku expect the divisional officer to put an end to urban disorder. Meantime, the people have their fingers crossed, hoping that the administration will bring development in her area of command.
And now we talk health. Recently, the population of Douala has been experiencing very high temperatures, and medical doctors say high temperatures or heat can have adverse effects on our health. Immaculate Fogwe spoke with a health personnel or a health official. She now tells us more in this report.
The National Observatory on Climate Change raises an alert about an anticipated heat wave that will sweep across some regions across Cameroon from the 11th to the 20th of January. In the latest report, the organ warns of extreme temperatures that will hit the northwest, southwest, center, south, north and far north regions. How does this heat wave condition affect the population? A health expert, Dr. Ako Chinel, explains.
Common medical conditions such as heat cramps, that is sustained muscle spasm due to excessive sweating, loss of fluids and salts, could occur to most people during this period. Secondly, we can have heat exhaustion, still as a complication of this fluid and salt loss. As a result, these patients are confused, they are nauseated, they are tired.
She goes further to say, if care is not taken, then severe health complications may arise, resulting to several fatalities.
The third complication could be a heat stroke. A heat stroke is quite severe and it's a medical emergency. Other conditions are increased respiratory conditions, cardiovascular conditions, and indirectly these heat wave conditions can indirectly affect the health of people, such as saving storage of medications, increase of hospitalization.
How then can we protect ourselves from being affected by the high temperatures during this period? Dr. Ako Chinel attempts an answer.
We drink a lot of water. Secondly, we avoid doing strenuous outdoors activities, strenuous sports, especially when it's hot. Thirdly, we keep our environment cooler.
Cameroonians are urged to take precautionary measures so as to stay safe from the devastating effects of the heat wave.
And now on to one of our major lead stories as various political parties prepare for the presidential election in Cameroon. The idea of forming a coalition against the party in power has come up severally. But how is that possible? Political analysts qualify the conflict of ideas between opposition politicians as a distraction. They say neither the idea of a coalition, primaries, or political transition upheld by different leaders of the opposition parties can yield any fruits in terms of winning elections next year. Babila Jonathan reports.
As election year 2025 draws near, opposition politicians are expressing convergent and divergent views, ideas and stands on how to go about the power contest to unseat the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement CPDM regime. While some say a political transition is the way forward, others are calling for a coalition.
The opposition is not going to come together at all because they don't agree on principles. We have 367 political parties, and the reason why there are so many is because they fail to agree on what is true and what is just and what is right. So if people can agree on basic principles, a lot of things will fall in place. But as we have said before, politics in Cameroon and in the third world is controlled by greed and ego, and people try to always pull the blanket onto themselves.
Nous pensons qu'il s'agit juste d'une distraction. La coalition n'a jamais été une panacée, un remède soigne tout de l'opposition.
The national president of the Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation, Honorable Cabral Libi, thinks primaries should be organized to determine who leads the way to the unity palace.
I bet you they will not have that unique candidate because already you can see the MRC and others, they just go and then they just choose a candidate from amongst themselves without asking others.
Où est-ce qu'on a vu tous les partis d'une opposition organiser les primaires? Où est-ce qu'on a vu l'opposition choisir un candidat sur la base des performances des débats télévisés?
Dr. Aristide Mono adds that the conflicting ideas are results of the efforts by some persons in the dark working to disperse the power of change by discrediting and weakening serious opposition parties.
L'opposition à l'heure actuelle a mieux à faire.
To him, the opposition should rather concentrate its efforts to obtain a revision of the electoral code and to mobilize as many Cameroonians of voting age as possible to register on the electoral list and eventually vote when the time comes.
And now we take you to news out of Cameroon. Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has announced his intentions to become the next chairperson of the African Union Commission, currently headed by Chad Musa Faki Bahamad, whose second term ends next year. And Pope Francis has called on faithful to pray for the end of conflicts across Africa, especially in Sudan and Mozambique. This was during the Angelus prayer that was on Sunday. And in Guinea-Conakry, the hostess of President Alpha Condé have dissolved the government with no reason for doing so. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya and his collaborators said they will put in place a new one. Innocent Azenau has the development of the stories.
Article 1er. Le gouvernement est dissous.
Military leaders in Guinea-Conakry dissolved the government without advancing any explanation on why. All they said was they will appoint a new one. In a video on Monday night, the President's Secretary General, General Amara Kamara, added that daily business would continue as usual under the Deputy Secretary Generals until a new government was formed. Ibrahima Sori Bangura, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, said members of the dissolved government had to return their vehicles and passports as soon as possible. Their bodyguards also had to end their service, and the ministers' bank accounts were frozen. Elsewhere, Pope Francis, during the Angelus last Sunday, prayed for peace in war-torn African countries, especially in Sudan and Mozambique. The Pope urged the warring parties, the Sudanese military and the paramilitary rapid support forces to cease hostilities and a peaceful solution found to better the future of Sudan. He also regretted rampant violence against defenseless populations, destruction of infrastructures, insecurity in the province of Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, where in recent days the Catholic mission of Our Lady of Africa in Mazeze was also set on fire. He prayed for peace to return to the tormented region, gripped for nearly 6 years by an insurgency led by fighters linked to the Islamic State group. In Kenya, renowned political figure and opposition leader Raila Odinga officially announced his candidacy for the chairperson of the African Union Commission. He revealed his readiness to serve the continent he believes is suffering from the brain drain syndrome. He voiced his discontent with the plight of African youth forced to seek opportunities abroad due to challenging economic conditions. He promised to leverage his leadership and transform Africa's fortunes and position the continent as an economic powerhouse. The African Union Commission chairperson position is set to be vacant next year, with incumbent Charles Musa Faki Mahamat concluding his two-term tenure.
Thank you, Innocent Ase, for that foreign page roundup. And viewers, that does it for the first part of the news. The Square Away Talking Point comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Today we are talking on the Anglophone crisis and why the war in the northwest and the southwest regions featured nowhere in the just ended AU summit in Ethiopia. And our guest tonight is Dr. Businiba. He is a political analyst. Doctor, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Now, the Anglophone crisis has been going on for several years, and the situation, we can say, keeps degenerating or deteriorating. The AU just ended its summit in Ethiopia, and despite calls by the ICG for the Anglophone crisis to be part of the agenda or the menu, nothing was mentioned. Now, how can you comprehend that, Doctor?
Thank you very much. We have seen situation where the government wanted to mediate in this crisis. Nothing was done, and the Canadian personalities and the government. I think that the crisis has been neglected. We have seen situations here in Africa where the African Union has engaged in solving crises, where even in post-electoral results, where some presidents they don't want to accept electoral wins. We have seen situations where the African Union comes in when there's violence, psychological violence, physical violence, to solve the problem immediately. Cameroon being a sovereign country, I think that Cameroon is a member of the African Union, and it is the responsibility of the African Union to address the problems Cameroonians are facing. But I want to look at it from this perspective, because there are some people who are eating fat in this crisis. They don't want the crisis to be solved immediately, and we can see it from all dimensions. I think that there are some politicians that are not telling the truth to the head of state, because I think that some people are always telling the head of state that the crisis in the northwest and southwest is getting calmer on daily basis, that things are fine. But I want to say that the crisis in the northwest and southwest is not getting calmer on daily basis, because some politicians visit the northwest and southwest, their remark to the president is that things are getting better on daily basis. But I want to say that things are not really getting better, because there's what they call economy of war, and people are eating in this crisis. They are making a lot of money in this crisis, and they don't want the crisis to end on both sides.
Dr. Neba, you just mentioned neglect. The Anglophone crisis is considered by many as one of the most neglected crises in Africa, considering the atrocities that have happened and continue to happen in the northwest and the southwest. Why is a crisis which is causing untold suffering being overlooked by those who should be the ones to hit the table for it to end definitely?
It is really sad that the 37th ordinary session of the African Union just ended and nothing was said about the Anglophone crisis. I want to say that the Anglophone crisis has been very, very serious. Many people have died. Many people have lost their lives. Since 2017, we have seen a lot of deaths, raped. Many people have been killed. Many people have been raped. And we have seen young girls who have been raped. Many people, thousands of persons in the northwest and southwest, they are internally displaced persons, and they don't have where to live. They are living in poverty, in hardship. We have seen situations where many people have died. The Ngabu incident, where children died below 8 years. We have seen many situations where a child was killed in Moyoka. A young child was killed in Moyoka. Pregnant women being killed. We have seen places where many people, recently here in Buya, even a young man was killed at checkpoint. People keep dying on a daily basis and the non-state actors killing people. the state military also exchanging gunshots with the non-state actors on daily basis, and people are dying, houses are being set ablaze, hospitals are being burned on daily basis, children cannot go to school, a lot of antisocial behavior in our society today because young girls who cannot go to school, they have migrated to Douala and they are doing a lot of prostitution that's affecting their mental health and their lifestyle. I want to say that when we look at the Anglophone crisis, it's something to be pitied, because when you look at the African Union is one of the most powerful organs in Africa, chaired by Moussa Faki. And I think that it is the responsibility of the chairman of the African Union, Moussa Faki, to take responsibility to see that the Anglophone crisis can be addressed, because people have been dying on daily basis. They cannot say that it's an internal crisis. I think that it's a crisis that we have seen hospitals being burnt.
Now, we seem to be blaming the EU for not talking about the Anglophone crisis, Dr. Businiba. What if the EU brought it to the table? Do you think it would have had any impact on the handling of the crisis by the Cameroonian government? Why do I ask this? It's because we have had even Canada tender a hand to mediate for better dialogue, but our government wasn't receptive.
I think that the AU is the most powerful body in Africa. And if the AU is able to table the Anglophone crisis to the government of Cameroon, I think that something will be done. The African Union is a powerful body. We have seen regional blocs in Africa here doing things and solving crises in Africa. And I think that the AU can solve this problem. Yaya Jammeh, it was the regional bloc of West Africa that solved that problem in Equinoxe. And the AU is the most powerful house in Africa. And if the chairman of AU, Moussa Faki, tabled the Anglophone crisis in the next 38th General Assembly of the African Union, I think that the head of state of Cameroon or his representative will take cognizance of this, and they will take it very serious, because there was a time that His Excellency President Paul Biya, even in France, he said the Anglophones were being marginalized and were being Franconized, meaning that His Excellency President Paul Biya recognized that there is a problem. And I think that if the African Union comes in as a body, which Cameroon is part of the African Union, the crisis will be solved. And the African Union should come with their terms. And in their terms, there's what we call goals. And these goals, Cameroon should be able to solve the crisis within a specific period of time. It should be time bound. And if the African Union comes that, I want you people to solve this problem in less than a year, they should give their time bounds. And if they give a time bound to Cameroon, Cameroon will be able to solve the crisis, because Cameroon enjoys certain largesse with other countries, African countries. And you could see what happened with the AGOA, where Americans wanted to stop Cameroon business with transactions with them. So I think that if certain rules are put in place, Cameroon is supposed to obey the African Union. And the chairman of the African Union, he has been reluctant a lot to solve the Anglophone crisis. And I don't know his problem.
Okay, Doctor, the blame game might not really be helping, and there is hope for those who are still alive in the northwest and the southwest regions. Now, what, according to you, is a possible way out of the impasse we find ourselves at the moment?
Let's look at the possible ways of solving the Anglophone crisis. There are numerous of them. First of all, as a psychologist and a political actor, what I have to say is that we need to calm down. Psychologically, we need emotional regulation, we need emotional stability, we need to regulate our emotions, we need emotional intelligence. When we have this emotional intelligence now, we need to call for an inclusive dialogue. And this inclusive dialogue, everybody should be on the negotiation table. And I think that Anglophones also have to be thinking of sending representatives, because not everybody should be on the dialogue table. If you look at what late Christian Cardinal Toumé wanted to do, it was very important for the All-Anglophone Conference. I think that we can be thinking for an All-Anglophone Conference, because I'm seeing that very difficult, because every Anglophone seems to be a leader. We need to put our leader that can sit on and represent the Anglophones on the negotiation table, whereby those in prison, they are part of the negotiation, and those abroad who are foiling the crisis for the past 7 years, they should be part of the negotiation and the dialogue. And I think that on this dialogue table, the head of state, His Excellency President Paul Biya, the guarantor of the Constitution, the guarantor of peace, I think that he was elected by the people of Cameroon. Let the head of state be there on the dialogue table.
Dr. Businiba, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. And just to let our viewers know that you were getting to us from Boya in the southwest region. Viewers, thank you so much for always being there. Don't go away. Our programs continue. Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m. with Pierre Lavetu Ombang, and Julien Beth Bissau will be with you in the studio at 8 p.m. for the news in the French language. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.